So we're learning Kuntres Acharon. We're still in the first essay. It's the last section, the fifth section of Tanya. In these essays, the Alter Rebbe seeks to clarify various points that he made in the first section of Tanya called Likutei Amorim. And the reconciliation that he seeks to do here is more on the Kabbalistic end, meaning he made certain statements where he himself says, how do I reconcile that with statements in the Zohar, in the Eitz Chaim, and the Pri-Eitz Chaim? So he began over here with what he said in chapter 40 of Tanya. And in chapter 40 of Tanya, which is kind of the culmination of 5 chapters, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 6 chapters, 40, those chapters are dedicated to the importance of kavanah, focused intent, and the importance of developing a love, an ava, and a yira, and an awe for Hashem in your davening and your learning and in all of your behavior and mitzvahs. The bulk of the Tanya is dedicated to Maisa, right? Well, we say the on the cover page of the title page of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that this book is based on the pasuk Ki kari v'lecha adavar mi'oid b'ficha u'v'lvavcha la'asosoi. For this thing, Torah, is near you, is close to you, very close to you. Ki kari v'lecha adavar mi'oid, very close to you in your mouth, in your heart. La'asoso, to do, and to do. So as he develops this thought in his Tanya, we recognize that the Ikar is Meiser. The Ikar is action. And that's why chapters 36, 35, 36, and 37, he brings the story in the Zohar with the Yanuka, with the Shemen HaRoshai, and the Psila, and the oil, and he says the main thing is the burning of the oil and that the wick should be lit. Which in the moral is the idea of the Maisa. Action. Action talks loudest. So although that's true, then in chapters 38, 39, and 40, those 3 chapters, he says, I have to make you aware, reader and student of Tanya, that don't think that love and fear isn't necessary and is some small change. And in fact, it's a lot of change. It's a hard avodah. And in a way, it's much harder than action. Because action you can do bereft of feelings. Put your tefillin on the morning, you do know what you're saying, you don't know what you're saying. You were told this is the way to put on tefillin. You learned how to put on the tefillin, you put on tefillin. You don't understand what the tefillin are about. You don't know the laws. You don't know what the Gemara says. You don't know. You just put the tefillin on. And as we know from putting on tefillin with others and ourselves, you meet someone, you offer him to put on tefillin. You don't give him a whole drasha about tefillin. Because by the time you give him the drasha, the guy will be half a block away. So you just put the tefillin on with that. Nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe says a Yid who's looking to be a servant of Hashem and to develop their closeness to God should seek also having a feeling, an ava, a yira. It shouldn't just be a dry action. And the Alter Rebbe said, quoting the Zohar HaKadosh in chapter 40, that a mitzvah b'loi kavanah, when you do a mitzvah, a commandment, without focused intent, is like a bird without its wings. Can a bird exist without wings? The answer is yes. Can it soar and fly? Absolutely not. It needs wings. So the Zohar HaKadosh says that a mitzvah, b'loi kavanah, is like a bird without wings. And that mitzvah is not soaring on high. You got the mitzvah, it's lock, stock, and barrel in your portfolio, okay? But you still won't reap the benefits of that stock. Lahavdil. right? Because it's not inspired. Yoni, it's not inspirational. It's action. It's boring. It's unspiritual. It's unmotivated. So the Alter Rebbe says, if this is the case, I have a few questions on himself. This is what he's doing here in the essay, the first essay. One is, he says, what about when you read stories in the Torah, narratives in the Torah, all the narratives that we have? It says in Kabbalah that it causes what we call a yichud with chochmi law, with supernal wisdom. Alter Rebbe says, really? Reading a story does it? Reading a story is a story. When you study Tazria Mitzayra, last week's Parshas, and you know the details, so there's intellectualism there. So the intellectualism connects to the Chochmi law, to Hashem's supernal wisdom. Chochmi law is supernal wisdom. You're using your intellect. It makes sense. There's a relationship. But how is there a relationship between a narrative, a story, and Chochmi law? That was one question. The second question that he had is So he answers the question. He says, you're right. You yourself don't have it through reading narratives, but your source, something called diyuknin. The word was diyuknin. Your image-like in heaven, meaning your source of your neshama, it understands the deeper matters of the narratives, of the stories. So because it's your shoresh, it's your source, it's the source of your soul, so although you intellectually don't understand the depth in the narratives, in the stories, but your likeness image, your source of the neshama does, and therefore you're credited with a connection to Chochmi law. To that, the Alter Rebbe asked on his own response, that doesn't make sense. I mean, that's not you. That's your source. Thank you very much. We all know we have a great source. We have a high neshama. We have a great neshama. But what about our goof, our body, our mind, our heart? If we don't have the understanding, then seemingly we don't have anything. So to this, the Alter Rebbe started to explain that the statement made in the Tikkunim, the Zohar, that there is a connection, and only through dibur. I'm sorry, through dibur, through speech, when you speak Torah and not just thought. In other words, he brings this idea that when you articulate with your lips the words of Torah, including the narratives, that itself pierces the heavens. This is where we're at. Now, in piercing the heavens, Hillel, which heavens are you piercing? So the Alter Rebbe speaks about 4 different heavens: Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, known as the 4 worlds. The world of Atzilus, in its pure state, is close to God. Atzilus comes from the word etzloi. It's near and close to God. When you say the written word and not just the thought, you pierce the world of Atzilus, and that's where we're at now. Look at page 264. Those that have the lessons in Tanya. Those that don't, it's towards the beginning of the first essay. So he says, Aval adibur yesh leimar de bekeya v'salak l'atzilus mamish. Dibur, speech, we may say, and I explained to you at length, and if you didn't hear it because you weren't by the class, you should listen to the class. The Alter Rebbe, this is the only place in Tanya you'll find that he says yesh leimar. Yesh leimar means we possibly could say. You will not find that in the first 4 sections of Tanya. When the Alter Rebbe writes and speaks in Tanya, he's sure of what he's saying. He's the writer, he's the author. Here, he employs yesh leimar, as though he doesn't know and maybe. So, everyone can take it the way they want, but I explained that this comes from his humility. From the Alter Rebbe didn't know. I mean, the Alter Rebbe was immersed in Kabbalah. And he was a goy. So he didn't know. And if he didn't know these things, then how does he know how can he say with surety things that he says in the first 4 sections of Tanya? You can also say about that, maybe. And yet he doesn't use the word maybe, yesh leimar, in the first 4 sections. And here he does. So we explained this at the last class. I don't want to go over it, but I just want to point it out to you. What does he say? He says that dibur, when you articulate the words of Torah, it pierces atzilus mamish. So the question is, what does the Alter Rebbe have? What does he mean, Baruch, with the word mamish? It pierces atzilus. What do you mean it pierces atzilus mamish? So the note here explains, the actual world of atzilus, and the highest level within each of the lower worlds, as explained above, the uttered words of a consummate tzaddik, like the rest of his Torah mitzvahs, ascend to the actual world of atzilus. In other words, right, we know, like we're saying Sphira now, right? What was last night? Chesed shebenetzach. Yoini, Chesed shebenetzach is not Netzach, is not Chesed. It's a component within Netzach. The Ikar is Netzach. But somehow there's a format of Netzach which is Chesed, and there's a format of Chesed, of Netzach, which is Gvura, and Teferes, etc., etc. And last night was Chesed shebenetzach, whatever that is. I'm not going into it now, right? So the same thing Hillel's with Atzilus. There's Atzilus within Bria, there's Atzilus within Yetzira, and there's Atzilus within Asiya. So the Alter Rebbe says, that's not what I mean here. I mean Atzilus mamish. You hear? That when you articulate the words of Torah, you're piercing the world of Atzilus as the gender orientation, the primary orientation, i.e. Atzilus. Not Atzilus within Bria, Yetzira, or Asiya. That's where he comes to exclude. Then he says, Oy lebria, or your words only pierce the world of Bria. B'tchilu rechimu sichlium, with what we call intellectual comprehension of love and fear. Now, what he means here is, we learned this already in chapters 39 and also 16. Depending on how much your mind comprehends of the subject matter in Torah, that is the result that will be. So, if, for example, you understand with your mind that so-and-so makes sense, and therefore I should be attracted to it, i.e., have love for it, Ava, or Moshe, I understand how it's awesome, and therefore I should be fearful of it, distant of it, because it's just overwhelming, and I should have reverence. Those are what we call Ava and Yira Sichliyim. They're love and fear as notions within the intellect. They're not palpable love and fears of the heart. And what does that generate? That generates an intellectual love and fear, not a practical love and fear, and not even an emotional love and fear. Chevra, we have 3 stages. An intellectual love and fear, Baruch, an emotional love and fear, and a practical love and fear. And by the way, this is so relevant for us in our relationships, whether it be with our spouses or children or family and people. And you see sometimes that you're attracted to someone, but it's all up here. It's in the cup. And then when kind of one seeks to go to the heart, there's a breakdown. Sometimes it's in the heart, When it comes to practicality, to say, will you marry me and I will marry you and I'm going to stand under the chuppah with you, no way, Jose. Like we all know the saying that we hear, and maybe we experienced at times with different relationships. You're a good person, and I like you as a friend, but I ain't marrying you. Why? Why? If they're a good friend, why don't you marry them? Because, bottom line, I'm not on that level. I don't feel it. I'm sorry. I think it'll be a disaster if we marry. But you say you're a good friend. Yes. As a friend, we're good friends. As spouses, it'll be a disaster.
Platonic relationship.
What'd you say?
Platonic relationship.
And sometimes it's platonic relationships, but sometimes, Yoini, it's correct. It's not correct to keep up, that type of a lifestyle, of course. But I'm saying, let's not talk about in marriage. Let's talk about this idea in friends, because I've gone through this. And I would think, everyone. You grow up with certain friends. You go to college with them. You go to yeshiva with them, and you're close to them. Years go by, and it dwindles, and you might want to be close, and you express that, and they give you the cold shoulder. What happened over here? We were best buddies in college. We were best buddies in yeshiva. What happened over here? And the answer is that the ava and the yira, the love and the awe and the relationship, feelings and all that, only went so far. So here you have the same idea in Kabbalah, and I show you again, very important for you chevra who learn Chassidus, how everything in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, but as Chassidus explains it, is so practical, is so real. You need to have the methodology, and then you can point to it. And this is something that Alter Rebbe is saying right here. There is the Atzilus experience. There is the Bria, the Asiya, and Yitzir Asiya. What's Bria? Bria is ex nihilo creation. So it's a bond, it's a creation, but it's only a beginning. In other words, it's up here. Up here is only a beginning. The next step is Yitzira. Here, in the heart. It's still not the ultimate. It's more than up here. It's already in your heart. But we also have infatuations. It's in the heart. And it could be totally wrong. Right? Totally wrong. People are meeting people on the internet, this and that, and they're inviting them to home. What, are you out of your mind? People can fake their IDs and they can rob you, or God forbid, rape you, or, what are you doing? Right? We're living at a time where these things are very real. These aren't just, figment of my imagination, Bubba Mices. So in other words, the feelings that you develop aren't yet real. You know when it's real? When you stand under the chuppah. When you stand under the chuppah and you're together in a house, and that's why the laws of yichud are so important, there it's real. And you could understand how this relationship is good. You could even feel our relationship is good, but when it comes to standing under the chuppah, you're not ready to do that because something just is not right. So these ideas are encapsulated in what the Alter Rebbe is saying here, although he doesn't use the words that I'm explaining now. So let's go back to the text. Oy lebriya, or when you learn Torah, your words pierce only the word of Bria, only the world of creation. With intellectual love and fear. Oy, or next page 265 in the Lessons in Tanya version, Yitzira, it only permeates the world of creation. Yitzira, of formation, the world of formation. And what is that? Look, B'tchilu rechimu tiviyim, not intellectual love and fear, but natural love and fear, which is lower than the Tchilu Rechimu Sichliyim. The Tchilu Rechimu, the love and fear that's intellectualized, is intellectualized. You can rationally explain the feelings. Then there's this lower, like I can't explain it to you rationally, but I have this natural feeling. Then he goes on to say, Uvemikra, not when you study Kabbalah, but when you study the Torah, so at that time you just utter the words. That's the acceptance of the yoke called Kabbalah Soil. So Salik Me'olam Hazeh, this speech rises from the world Leyud Sfiras Asiya, to the 10 spheres of Asiya, that relates to Torah and mitzvahs that are performed merely out of acceptance of God's yoke, for it pierces the atmosphere between physical and spiritual Asiya. Okay. This is all true when you articulate the words with your mouth. Mashen can conversely be hirud, if you only think about it, it doesn't happen. It doesn't ascend to the higher worlds. Thinking Torah, I don't care what Torah it is, it's very important and very good, but it doesn't ascend. Ela de yoiknin, only the likeness which is the source of the soul, and which at the time is also engaged in Torah, thereby connecting him with spiritual wisdom. So that's the answer. Listen to this, I'm summing it up. When you don't articulate, but you use your mind to think Torah, you connect to what's called the likeness, the image. And the image, which is the source of your soul, is connected to supernal wisdom. But you yourself remain untouched. That's what he says. That's when you think. But when you speak, one second, when you speak, you make a Torah. Depending on how it comes out, as we said, these 4 different ways, it touches 4 different levels. Yes, Yaini? What?
Is that the reason, is that the reason why in Lubavitch the emphasis making brachas out loud and doing like L'Shem, like, L'Shem Yichud and all that out loud? Everyone does that. Like it's more of
okay, first of all, Yoni, just for the record, Lubavitch does not say L'Shem Yichud before mitzvahs except once a day before Baruch Shomar. You should just know that. And we don't even say, right, by Ma'ariv, Sfira Sa'imer, Chabad Minig is not to say L'Shem Yichud. Everyone else says L'Shem Yichud. Why? You are making a yichud. You are making a unity, because we rely on the yichud that we said in the morning before Baruch Shomar. So the l'shem yichud that we do once a day in the morning before Baruch Shomar and Shachris, it goes for the rest of the day, including all the rest of the mitzvahs. Others feel it should be said by other mitzvahs. Now, to answer your question, is that the reason we say it out loud? No, we say it out loud because it's important to articulate. And it has nothing to do with Lubavitch. It has to do with going to a shul, and I listen. Many people they say their brachas out loud. Whether I'm not even talking about the birchas hashachar, but they'll make a bracha on a cup of coffee or tea or water, shakal nibadvari, for other people to answer amen. So it has nothing to do with Lubavitch. It has nothing to do with what we're learning here. Here we're talking about Yoni learning Torah. We're not talking about brachas. We're talking about the study of Torah. You know, when you read how are you educated in school and in college? You read out with your lips. You read like this. Silence. Hirur. Right? And with Torah it says v'dibarta bom. You shall speak the words. The actual words should be articulated. So the Alter Rebbe says that this concept makes a difference as far as your Torah piercing the heavens, and to which degree in the heaven, or not piercing the heavens, where you yourself are stuck in a rut, and your source connects. Very nice. What do I have for my source? I have a holy source. It's like, hey, I had a holy grandfather, and who am I? A big zero. Thank you very much. Like, okay. You know? you can put on your shidduch resume, my grandfather and great-grandfather was this Jew, this chassid, this Talmud Chacham. And what are you? Like I told you the story, I'm Shaika Pfeiffer. I'm Shia, the whistleblower. I don't know anything. I just can blow a whistle. So there's, and if you're blowing the Rebbe's whistle, the Tzaddik's whistle, and that's who you are, it's a different story. But the point being that it takes an articulation of the words to create a connection with one of these four levels. Now the Alter Rebbe asks another question. That thinking achieves nothing, not even a beneficial act. So speaking of thought, the Zohar there refers to improper thoughts. If a person has improper thoughts, you hear this, Moshe Myers? Improper thoughts, is it a problem or not? The Zohar says it achieves nothing. For it is only when one actually speaks and not merely thinks of mundane matters on Shabbat, on Shabbos, that he causes a blemish in the spiritual realms, since his speech ascends aloft and introduces mundanity within the sanctity of Shabbos above. In the same way, the Alter Rebbe adds, thought alone, unless it is accompanied by words or deeds, has no positive effect above. Right? The Zohar says this about thinking, by the way, it doesn't mean inappropriate sexual thoughts. We're talking about just mundane thoughts of Shabbos. How's my car? I have to fix my car tomorrow. Are you allowed to think about that on Shabbos? You're allowed. It's not an Aveda. It says, V'daber davar, you're not allowed to speak it. That's what the Zohar says. So the Alter Rebbe says, if this is true in the negative, that a wrong thought on Shabbos is not considered a violation, surely a thought that is not negative would have no impact. Ayin Shom over Daf Lamed Aleph on the Beis over there. For the Zohar says there that in order to receive the sanctity and joy of the Jewish festivals, there must first be an arousal from below through deed or speech. If it then goes on to say that mundane talk during Shabbos will cause a blemish above, though not mundane thoughts. We thus see from the Zohar, we see that the Zohar is speaking of the inability of thought alone to produce either positive or negative effects. Same is true of the statements in the Zohar that a deed below inspires a deed above. A holy deed brings forth as an arousal of holiness from above that descends upon the doer, while a deed stemming from impurity causes a spirit of impurity to descend upon him. The Zohar concludes there that whatever depends upon action affects action, while whatever depends upon speech affects speech. Thus, too, indicates that both a positive and a negative impact can be made only through action or speech, and not through disembodied thought alone. Now, if thought alone accomplishes nothing, as the Zohar says, how does this square with the earlier statement that when one reads the narratives of the Torah, even if he does so only in his thought, he causes the likeness of supernal man to study Torah, and thereby the person involved is united with supernal wisdom? That's his question. And the Alter Rebbe resolves this seeming contradiction as follows. The Zohar only means that thought has no effect in drawing down illumination from above. It is true that it is not an arousal from below that elicits an arousal from above. However, thought does have a vital effect above. One's thoughts and intentions are indispensable in elevating one's Torah study and performance of the commandments and infecting the consequent supernal unions. I will explain this tomorrow at greater length. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see everyone tomorrow. Shalom.